But when her coffin was unearthed, Lancaster's body was apparently incorrupt.
To be in the presence of such a holy woman, something I'll never forget. It's a once-in-a-lifetime.
Saints who defied the natural order. Their bodies remained untouched by decay, hundreds of years after death. Think Indiana Jones meets the Holy Grail. Because we're about to unveil 12 insane cases of incorruptible bodies. From rosy-cheeked Saint Bernadette to Padre Pio with his perfectly groomed beard, these holy figures seem to have defied the natural order. Is it divine intervention or something more mysterious? Prepare to have your mind blown as we delve into the mysteries of these holy anomalies.
The partially reconstructed remains of Padre Pio have begun an overland journey to the Vatican at the request of the Pope. Declared a saint in 2002, he's being transported from southern Italy in a crystal coffin.
Number 15. The story of Father Pio, or San Pio de Pietrelcina. One of the most beloved saints of the 20th century, Father Pio, also known as San Pio de Pietrelcina, had an enthralling life story filled with remarkable incidents. Francesco Forgione was born on May 25, 1887, in Pietrelcina, Italy, and he had a strong religious bent even as a child. He became a member of the Capuchinos and took the name Free Pio when he was 15 years old. Francesco joined the Capuchin order and was given the name Pio after sensing a profound call to God at a young age. The people around him were immediately captivated by his life of devotion to prayer, penance, and sacrifice. In 1918, Father Pio's already remarkable spiritual journey took a remarkable turn when he got the stigmata of Christ on his hands, feet, and side, adding to his profound devotion to the Eucharist and the Virgin Mary. He endured excruciating agony from these bleeding wounds, but he saw them as a divine sacrifice for the salvation of mankind. In addition to bearing the bodily stigmas, Father Pio also had additional supernatural abilities. Those who knew him were astounded by his bilocation, or the capacity to occupy two locations simultaneously. As he heard the penitents' confessions, he saw a person who had performed a miracle, the penitents' hearts. Throughout his life, he experienced the same level of spiritual energy, spiritual power, and the power of God. They witnessed repentant souls' hearts opening up about their secret transgressions and leading them to a place of redemption. He saw visions that foretold the future and had conversations with saints and angels throughout his life. He healed, comforted, and converted many with his words. After coming clean about their feelings for him, several went through significant changes in their lives. Their connection felt like a direct line to God, and the energy between their spirits was tangible. Padre Pio passed away at the age of 81 on September 23, 1968. The discovery that his bones were astonishingly preserved, with skin, hair, and nails intact, stunned the attendees at his funeral in 2008, but no one had anticipated that his body would resist the natural process of decomposition. Since this occurrence defies scientific explanation, Christians view it as a proof of God's favor. Saint Pius of Pietrelcina was canonized by Pope John Paul II. His prayers, letters, and writings continue to motivate Catholics all across the globe. His incorrupt corpse is a testimony to the everlasting life that awaits those who follow Christ faithfully, and Padre Pio's example of unity in suffering with Christ, the efficacy of prayer, and God's work through his saints are all things we should keep in mind. An example of the indestructibility of the Catholic tradition that is well known is Sainte Bernadette. The remains of Saint Bernadette, a young French peasant girl who became a saint of the Catholic Church, were exhumed 3 times after her death in 1879 for the beatification and canonization processes. Each time, they were found to be remarkably well preserved. Bernadette was born on January 7, 1844, in Hardis, France. Her life became famous for her visions of the Virgin Mary in the grotto from Mazaville, near Lourdes, beginning in 1858, when she was 14 years old. Despite her poverty, her devotion to the Virgin Mary and the Rosary consumed her. Something strange occurred one day while gathering firewood near the Mazaville grotto. The person was frail and sick. Once Bernadette, while she and her sister were crossing a river, she became separated from them. As they neared the grotto, she felt a wind about her and heard an enigmatic noise. Out of the dark came a figure, the Virgin Mary, clad in white, with a blue mantle and a rosary. Feet rested on golden roses in his palms. Incredulous, Bernadette started to say the rosary. As she passed the books on, the Virgin remained silent. Bernadette was joined in prayer by the Virgin Mary as she prayed to our fathers and the glory. In fact, the girl felt an overwhelming want to think about the woman all her life, rather than any dread. Bernadette persisted, even though her mother would not accept her account upon her return home. Returning to the grotto, the Virgin beckoned her. The Virgin Mary requested Bernadette's continued presence for 15 days in a row at the third apparition. She politely used the you while speaking in her Gascon dialect. In the hereafter, the Virgin assured her she would find joy. Bernadette persisted in carrying out the tasks given to her by the Virgin Mary. She asked the priest to construct a chapel, and while digging in the muck, she found a spring that flowed with miraculous purity. Although the church authorities first met Bernadette with suspicion and criticism, many came to accept her as a result of her humility and persistence. Following the Virgin Mary's request, the Mazaville grotto was turned into a pilgrimage site, and the Chapel of the Immaculate Conception was constructed. She joined the Sisters of Charity of Neva congregation after the apparitions. There she cared for the ill and embraced the austerity of the holy life in a selfless way. Number 13. San Juan Bautista Vianney. Whoever neglects God's presence in his life is wasting time. The holy curator of Ars, Saint Juan Maria Vianney, was ordained a priest in 1815 after being born in 1786. The small town of Ars appointed him parish priest in 1818, and his life was defined by a profound devotion and a servant's desire to save souls. A model of the priest who seeks Jesus' heart, he persevered through austerity and Satan's attacks with extraordinary patience and inner calm. Saint John Maria Vianney spent 40 years responding to the needs of those who sought forgiveness in the confessional. He went without food for days, subsisting solely on bread and poppies, while listening to confessions, sometimes for as long as 18 hours straight. He became famous as the Holy Priest of Ars because of his devotion and passion for restoring broken relationships with God. Saint John Maria Vianney's apostolic work included not only ministering in the confessional, but also founding the Providencia Institute, which hosted patronal banquets, rebuilt small churches, visited the ill and the impoverished, and welcomed orphans. The holy priest of Ars was tormented by the devil, who made nighttime sounds and even set fire to his bed in an effort to disrupt his ministry. Regardless, Saint John Maria Vianney persisted in his work after his confession, placing his trust in heavenly protection. Number 12. San Juan Bosco. Don Bosco, whose real name was San Juan Bosco, came into this world in Castelnuovo in Asti, Italy, on August 16, 1815. The remarkable life of this saint began with a strong Christian education that he received from his mother, Margherita Ocena. His extraordinary brain and skill set allowed him to display an early propensity for leading his friends in religious and recreational pursuits. Don Bosco came from a modest household and was born in 1815 in the Italian town of Castelnuovo of Asti. A strong religious calling struck him at an early age, and he devoted his life to aiding disadvantaged youngsters. A religious organization devoted to youth formation and education, the Salesian Congregation, was created by him. Education, according to Don Bosco, should be all-encompassing, encompassing not just the acquisition of factual facts, but also the cultivation of one's moral and spiritual character. For the benefit of underprivileged youth, he set up educational institutions, research facilities, and workshops where they could learn and develop. His work with young people stands out among his many accomplishments. Many young people cherished Don Bosco and looked up to him as their father figure. Number 11. Saint Catalina Laboure. Catalina Laboure was born in France in 1806 and was known for her selflessness and dedication throughout her life. She was a motherless orphan when she was 9 years old, and she asked the Virgin Mary to take care of her. Catalina aspired to be religious from an early age and made time to pray every day, despite the chores in her father's house. An elderly priest summoned Catalina in a dream to complete a Eucharist. Catalina saw a picture of the elderly guy she had fantasized about during her visit to the Congregation of Sisters of Charity in Châtillon. Saint Vincent de Paul, the congregation's founder, confirmed Catalina's vocation, and he was able to join the community when he was 24 years old. A remarkable manifestation of his closeness to the Virgin Mary occurred in 1830. His vision of future events, including the making of the miraculous medal, was shown to him by the Blessed Virgin Mary on the eve of St. Vincent's feast. O Mary, without sin conceived, pray for us who travel here, the medal reads, and the Virgin revealed Catalina the design. Those who confidently carried the medal would be much appreciated, she pledged. Number 10. Saint Rita of Cascia. In Roccaporena, a small village in Italy's mountainous region, Saint Rita of Cascia, also called the Saint of the Impossible, was born in May 1381. Growing up in a world where political solutions seemed inadequate, the daughter of Antonio Mancini and Amata Ferri, nicknamed the pacifiers of Jesus Christ, was immersed in a period of wars and crises. As a result of the religious upbringing she received from her parents, Rita submitted to her father's authority and gave up her plans to wed Pablo de Ferdinando, a violent youth, and return to the convent. Rita's marriage was characterized by patience and kindness, and she eventually succeeded in winning over her husband. Sadly, she did not escape her terrible demise at the hands of her former foes. Saint Rita spared her children the guilt of seeking revenge for her father's death by stealing God after her husband died so she could rescue their souls and welcome them into her kingdom. Rita, who was childless and widowed, applied to join the convent of the Anguishes of Cascia. But at first, her request was turned down. She bravely praised her sacred guardians and had a miraculous experience. She was escorted to the monastery by Saint Augustine, Saint John the Baptist, and Saint Nicholas of Tolentino, who opened the doors for her to put on the Augustine habit. Rita gave herself up to the crucifixion of Christ in the monastery via penance, prayer, and love. She was stigmatized during the exorcism by having a wooden rod thrust into her forehead, symbolizing the crown of thorns that Jesus Christ wore. Number 9. Saint Clare of Assisi. An unusual life defined by devotion, poverty, and the establishment of the Clarissas was lived by Saint Clare of Assisi, who was born in Italy in 1193 or 1194. Her parents were prominent members of her family and inculcated strong Christian principles in her. Her decision to dedicate her life to God was influenced by the evangelical zeal of San Francisco de Assis when she was 18 years old. Clara left her house and took up the habit in the Porciuncula chapel at San Francisco's command. She entered the San Pablo de las Aparescas Benedictine monastery, against objections from her relatives. Her sister Inez also joined the convent of San Angelo in Panso when she was moved there by San Francisco. The Franciscan ideal was central to Clara's existence in the convent of San Damian, where she led her sisters to renounce worldly goods and embrace a radical optimism. There, in the church that San Francisco had renovated, she founded the first community of destitute women called Clarissas. Sure, let's leave. For 40 years, Clara presided over the Monjas de San Damian monastery, where she was known for her piety, kindness, and discipline. Legend has it that the Aracenos who besieged Assis were vanquished by her prayers. The Franciscan rule, as it was adapted for the religious and the form of life, were both written by Santa Clara. A pontifical letter that was approved of the rule in 1253, after her death, was canonized in 1255. For 7 years, San Francisco was the designated site for her official interment. Number 8. Saint Margarita Alacoque. We shall understand this, Saint Margarita Alacoque, whose destiny is bound up with the secrets of Jesus' Sacred Heart. Personal connections, had a life filled with profound spiritual awakenings and heavenly discoveries. Margarita suffered and lost since she was a little girl in the village of Hautcourt. She took solace in her profound relationship with God. In 1673, at the celebrations of San Juan Evangelista, she had the honor of witnessing the first of Jesus' visible revelations while on her spiritual journey that began in 1671 at the monastery of Para, Ilemene.
Do you at least console and rejoice me?
Yes, Lord.
The start of a divine mission was signaled by this celestial meeting, which occurred on the first Friday of each month for 2 years. In 1675, at the celebration of Corpus Christi, Margarita experienced the climax. As a sign of humanity's dwindling supply of love, Jesus' open heart was revealed to the priest at the celebration of the Most Holy Sacrament. She was designated as the Sacred Heart's messenger by this sublime and poignant deed. In the midst of her anguish and prayer, Margarita lived her life devoted to Jesus. The fact that the Virgin Mary intervened miraculously in her life, despite a sickness that kept her bedridden for 4 years, is testament enough. Despite opposition and difficulties, Margarita continued to receive insights and teach others how to devote themselves to the heart of Jesus. Her shaky spiritual gift was solidified under the guidance of Jesuit Saint Claudio de la Colombière. Saint Francisco de Sales established the Order of Visitation, which maintains 18 monasteries around Spain, including the Monastery of Visitation in Granada, to keep the devotional fire burning brightly today. All around the nation, people are following Saint Margarita's example of devotion to the Sacred Heart, which serves as a constant reminder of the boundless love that Jesus Christ exhibited in his divine heart. Saint Margarita Maria Alacoque's life and sacrament of the Sacred Heart, which were canonized on May 13, 1920, encourage us to draw near to children and teach them the value of loving Jesus and loving one another. The French chapel of Para holds her remains beneath the altar. Number 7. San Francisco Javier. Back in the 1600s, there was a man whose soul was so full of God's glory that he felt compelled to answer Jesus Christ's call and spread the gospel to every corner of the globe. Pope Pius X appointed San Francisco Javier as the official patron of foreign missions because of his stature as a giant in mission history and his immense influence in spreading the gospel. I am sorry. Originating from the Spanish castle of Javier de Navarra, this courageous preacher was the youngest of his family, being born in 1506. While he was a student at the University of Paris, where he earned a license in 1528, his fate began to take form. Along his path, God sent Pedro Fabre and the enigmatic Ignacio de Loyola as part of his providential plan. Ignacio's influence devoured him, as he urged him not to lose himself in the pursuit of world dominance, formally confronting Francisco. Through spiritual exercises and a retreat that changed Francisco's heart and soul, Ignacio discovered that a man with Francisco's enormous heart and noble soul cannot be satisfied with his first earthly honors. This is how he became one of Saint Ignacio's earliest disciples and helped establish the Jesus Company in Montmartre in 1534. They resolved to live frugally and begin their mission in the Holy Land, but they ended up rerouting their plans to focus on Rome instead. There, they confirmed their dedication while relying solely on the Pope, and they worked together to edit the Jesus Campaign's compromises. Throughout mission history, San Francisco Javier has been held in high esteem as an example of both martyrdom and diplomacy, a symbol of the pursuit of everlasting glory rather than transient earthly honors. His life was defined by a profound spiritual transformation and selfless service to God. His legacy has endured through the ages. Number 6. San Juan Neumann, Juan Nepomuceno. Neumann was a guy whose fate was bound up in the web of 19th century civilizations and continents. Let us try to put ourselves in his shoes and imagine his remarkable life.
St. John Neumann was a tireless preacher of the gospel to the poor. As a Redemptorist priest and the 4th Bishop of Philadelphia,
His upbringing in the Austro-Hungarian town of Prachetice, where he was born in 1811, steered him towards a career in science. He was first interested in becoming a doctor, but his mother's insistence that he attend seminary sparked his vocation to missions. Juan intended to be ordained after studying theology in Prague, but he encountered obstacles in his own country. There were already too many priests serving in Bohemia, and no diocese was eager to accept any more. Juan, however, did not give up, but instead embarked on a life-altering quest. Doggedly, he picked up the language while toiling away at his factory job and eventually penned letters to American bishops. His ordination by the Bishop of New York was the last step on the road that would lead him to a large and difficult parish in the state's westernmost region. His modest church lacked a bell tower and pavement. However, Juan's life was consumed with a relentless pursuit of teaching, racing through towns and mountains and bringing Mass to people's kitchen tables. Nonetheless, he found the Redemptorists in his search for community.
They exhumed his body and put him on display in the shrine.
It's a little scary at first. You see St. John Neumann under glass.
Juan, who worked as the first priest in the Congregation of America, was known for his friendliness, jealousy, and piety. He was a visitor to the Redemptorists in the U.S. after serving in Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Number 5. Santa Teresita del Niño Jesús. A testament to love and faith that endures until death is the life of Santa Teresita del Niño Jesús.
Mother of God, pray for me. Pray for a poor sinner.
Instead of succumbing to natural decay after she passed away, her corpse remained immaculate, a living testament to her intimate relationship with the holy. The faithful and the curious are never ceaselessly amazed by this remarkable phenomena, which has been kept through the years, and it serves as a constant reminder of her dazzling spirit's immortal presence. Beyond being a mystery in and of itself, Santa Teresita's incorruptible body serves as a physical symbol of the hope that believers have in the promise of eternal life. Marie-Françoise Thérèse de Martin was her given name, but she is better known as Santa Teresita del Niño Jesús and of the Holy Face to the worldwide community. Her short but impactful life, which began on January 2, 1873 in Alençon, Normandy, changed the course of human events forever. A devout Catholic family was Teresita's upbringing. Love, humility, and dedication were characteristics that her parents, Louis Martin and Celia Maria Guerin, inculcated in her. Teresita had an overwhelming desire to serve God ever since she was a little girl. She moved into the Carmelitas Descalzas convent in Lisieux when she was 16 years old. Teresita was not a mystic in the conventional sense, but her devotion to God was infused with love and simplicity, and she gave her life entirely to Him. Visions she had brought her face to face with her spiritual infanthood. She had faith that anyone could approach God with a childlike sense of modesty and trust. She left a legacy that spanned her spiritual childhood path. Although Teresita was unable to do huge deeds, she was able to do little acts of love daily, she said. She transformed her ordinary existence into a sacred journey. Even as a little girl, she experienced the first miracle. The miracles persisted even after she passed away in 1897. On multiple instances, the rose shower that Teresita had foretold came to pass. Her intervention was felt by people everywhere. In her burial, the tiny blind girl known as Queen Fouquet was cured. She was 4 years old. Troops in the trenches during WWI felt protected by her flower, which they trusted. Her corpse was exhumed after she passed away. Number 4. Vicente de Paul. Vicente de Paul was born into a peasant family in a remote part of Gascuña in the year 1581. Despite his transient youth, a generous individual saw potential in him and provided him with the means to pursue further education. He received his degree in theology in 1604 and was consecrated a priest at the tender age of 19 in 1600. He started a private school, but he couldn't escape his debts. His journey from Marseille to Narbonne was cut short when he was kidnapped by pirates, who later sold him into slavery in Tunisia. 2 years down the road, his Converse owner helped him get his freedom back. Vicente began dating Cardinal Pierre de Berulle in 1612, the year he took over the parish of Clichy. His life took a dramatic change when he witnessed the vast wealth disparity firsthand while teaching the children of the Marquises of Gondi. The preaching mission, Itzago, funded by the Marquis of Gondi, was abandoned, and Vicente was forced to labor in the parish of Châtillon-le-Dombes, where he was profoundly affected by the poverty of the peasants. An organized reaction to situational suffering, the Vicentine Charity came into being in 1617. The act of assisting a struggling family grew into a network of mutual support. Seeing the need for a formal organization to support charitable work, Vicente established the consecrated order of women known as the Daughters of Charity in 1633. In contrast, the Ladies of Charity made monetary contributions to good deeds, most notably the 1634 opening of a hospital. As a generous person, Vicente did not stop at monetary donations. His spiritual legacy, wounded by the reguli, reverberates in the sacerdotal formation and charitable action, which he founded in 1618 out of concern for the development of the clergy. A barrier-free charity founded on universal love was his testament when he passed away in 1660. His remains and heart are both kept in urns at the Mother House of the Daughters of Charity in Paris after his death. Number 3. Saint Agatha. While the actual acts of Saint Agatha have perished, numerous reliable accounts of her martyrdom can be discovered in sources such as the Bollandists, Surius, and others, and she is much venerated by both the Greek and Latin churches. Saint Agatha was born into a wealthy and noble family in Sicily. Quintianus, a man of consular grandeur, was so enamored with her that he decided to force her to become his wife. This was in addition to her amazing beauty. After his decrees against Christians were made public, Emperor Decius had Agatha imprisoned on charges of being a Christian and taken to Catania, where he lived at the time. Because she had heard rumors about Quintinus's traps, the Holy Virgin Saint Agatha sought refuge in seclusion after hearing the declaration against Christians. But the governor's secretaries found her hiding spot, and after her arrest, she prayed in this way: "O Jesus Christ, Lord of heaven and earth, thou art aware of my heart's desire, which is to have thee as my only possession, since I have dedicated myself totally to thee. Lord, save me from this despot and provide me strength to triumph against Satan, who sets traps for my spirit." Aphrodisia, an atrocious woman who openly declared immodesty with her daughters, was given Saint Agatha by Quintianus when she appeared before him, in an effort to help her overcome her modesty. The saint endured more agony in her notorious home than any dank jail could provide, while Aphrodisia and her accomplices in crime relentlessly used all their cunning to get the saint to do what Quintianus wanted. Agatha, who had been dedicated to Jesus Christ from the time she was a little girl, was able to triumph over all their efforts by his grace. Number 2. St. Angela Merici. In 1470, at the town of Desenzano on the shores of Lake Garda in northern Italy, St. Angela Merici came into this world. Her devotion to God was evident even in her early years. She was so beloved in her hometown for her humility and virtue that she was essentially worshipped as a saint. In her 13th year, she joined the Third Order of St. Francis. Shortly after, she vowed to be chaste forever, gave up all her wealth, and intended to subsist solely on charity. In addition to this, St. Angela Merici fasted constantly from food and drink, slept on the ground, and performed other extreme austerities. Over the course of many days, Holy Communion was occasionally her sole source of nutrition. At the age of 23, St. Angela Merici had a vision of a friend who had recently passed away while praying in a remote area. According to her friend's prophecy, Angela was meant to build a religious institute that would educate young people and do boundless good for God's kingdom. Angela was greatly inspired to live a life of reflection and actively assist her fellow man as a result of that. Number 1. St. Francis of Rome. In 1384, a lady from an aristocratic Roman household gave birth to St. Francis of Rome. She wed Lorenzo Ponziani, another Roman nobleman, when she was just 12 years old. She was a model wife and mother to her 3 children, even though she had wanted to become a nun instead, since she had obeyed her father. A severe illness struck St. Francis not long after she wed. St. Francis made it clear to the man her husband had invited over who dabbled in magic that he would not be staying in her house. Finally, St. Alexis appeared to her and restored her health. From that point on, St. Francis of Rome felt her guardian angel's presence and support. In the event that she committed an error, he would gently prod her to correct herself. Located in Rome's Trastevere neighborhood, the Ponziani Palace stood adjacent to the diminutive church of San Francesco a Ripa. St. Francis received this church in 1212 from the Roman woman Giacomo di Settisoli, also known as Brother Jacoba. Brother Jacoba was present at Poverello's death in 1226. Observant reform in the First Order of St. Francis started in 1368 by Brother Paul or Pauluccio of Trinci, and supported by saints like St. Bernard and St. John Capistrano the next century, included the adjacent friary by 1414 at the latest. There were 34 such friaries. That's all for now. Which of these saints' stories shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments. Also, do not forget to like this video and subscribe for more thrilling videos like this.